Hallo Freunde, das folgende ist eine Konversation mit Tareq. Tareq ist der Gründer und Geschäftsführer von Community Collective aus Australien. Er hat 2 Offices in Australien und führt ein Unternehmen mit insgesamt 160 Mitarbeitern, 140 davon in Sales. Sein Unternehmen macht insgesamt 30 Millionen australische Dollar Umsatz dieses Jahr alleine. Er ist super erfolgreich und lustigerweise einer der ersten Mentoren, von denen ich damals lernen durfte in Australien. Fun Fact: Ich habe damals als 18-jähriger Junge auf seiner Couch schlafen dürfen. Heute sind wir hier, er ist Speaker auf unseren Events, er ist jemand, von dem ich extrem viel lernen darf. Es ist ein Interview in Englisch, deswegen schaltet die Untertitel ein, damit ihr die deutsche Version sehen könnt. Und wenn ihr mehr von Tareq sehen wollt, besucht seine Kanäle oder kommt zu einem unserer Events. Wir sehen uns bis dahin. Ciao, ciao. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this podcast. My name is Tareq. Next to me I have Tareq Cadei. Welcome, Tareq.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. It's a special guest coming all the way from Australia to meet us. Some of you viewers might know him from the Sales-Masterclass we just hosted in Warsaw in this November. Some of you might not know him, and for those of you who do not know Tareq yet, here's a little introduction. Tareq is originally from the Italian part of Switzerland.
That's correct.
Moved to Australia, what was it, 10 years ago?
10 years ago, next week.
Yeah. 10 years ago, and in the meantime has built his company up to 160 employees. He's working in direct sales, one of the biggest organizations in the industry in Australia, correct?
Yeah.
And this year you'll do how much revenue approximately? 30 million. That's Australian dollars.
Australian dollars, yeah.
So I'm very thrilled to have you here, Tareq.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Yeah, to have the audience to get to know your story. This is going to be a more like in-depth sales and leadership focused podcast. I still want to touch on your background. So if you can give the viewers an overview, because we talked at length already, of how you were brought up and what type of environment and why you decided to leave the family business to go to Australia. Mm-hmm. So that way we can go into the more nitty-gritty stuff later.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, Tareq Cadei. I was raised in Switzerland up until the age of 22 years old, right? So I was raised by a very entrepreneurial father, right? So my parents are divorced. My mom, she just works a normal 9-to-5 job. My father is a very, very heavy entrepreneur. So I was raised in that sort of environment. You know, all myself and my father ever talked about was always business. Every lunch, every single dinner, every single spare moment was always about business. So I never even consider any other option that wasn't running a business. Like I knew that pretty much since day one, okay? And then I started working in the family business. I started working in the family business when I was 18 years old. And it was great. It was a great experience helping my father, helping grow in the family business. But one day when I believe I was 21 years old, I realized that I couldn't speak any language, right? Because as you are aware, Tareq, Italians are not that good with languages. So one day I was sitting there and I was like, I have this ambition. I want to grow. I want to expand. But the only language that I can speak is Italian, right? And I'm not going to manage to go very far, because that's why my father was also restricted in his career, right? He always wanted to grow more and expand, but he was a little bit afraid because he couldn't speak any language. So he always stayed within his environment. That's when I decided to go to Brighton in England. I was there for 6 months. I studied English for 6 months. And then when I came back to Switzerland after those 6 months, that experience opened my mind, Tareq, because I come from a place of, it's a village close to Lugano, which only hosts, 15,000 people, something like that. So very, very small reality. And when I came back to that small village, I was like, I want to experience something of my own. I don't want to just get given a business from my father. I want to see what I can do. And that's when I decided to leave for Australia. Originally, my plan was to stay in Australia for a month. So that was the original plan. I had the flight already booked to come back after a month. And my plan was to go to Berkeley University to study international business 12 months after. Thank God I didn't do that. Thank God. And then nothing, man. I went to Australia. I started working in sales. And that month turned into 10 years, and here I am today.
So how was the first experience working in sales? So you just applied for different jobs. How did you get into that, and why did you decide to go all in when you went to this interview?
Great question. To be honest, it happened by chance, because when I first got to Australia, my first job was an internship. I didn't even ask what the pay was, because I was like, well, I got a job, let's just do this. A couple of weeks later, I found out that the pay was 600 Australian dollars a month. My rent alone was $1,200 a month. My savings, I went to Australia with $500 in my pocket. So I was like, well, already on month one, I'm negative $100. This is not going to be sustainable. This is not going to work out. Simultaneously at that time, I was reading a book from Robert Kiyosaki. I believe there was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or one of those books that was explaining the importance of learning sales. And therefore, that's why I applied for a sales job. And initially my mindset was, I don't know how sales is going to benefit me, but surely it's going to benefit me down the line to become a business owner. And that's how my sales career started. When I first started working in sales at that company at the time in Australia, again, my plan was to only stay there for 2 or 3 months. And then, 2 or 3 months turned into 6 turned into 12 months, and so on and so forth. But no, I didn't have a master plan to go to Australia and build a sales company. The only master plan that I had was, I'm going to go to Australia for a month, and then we see what happens, right?
So you always had this build as you go mindset. So you didn't overthink too much. You always said, okay, let me just put my first foot down, and then I'll see how it goes. Is that something that you think that your father taught you to just get started, to just get going and then figure it out the rest of the way?
Absolutely, right? Because I don't know if that was subconscious. It's not a lesson that he necessarily told me or something that he sent me down one day and said, son, you need to learn this lesson. It's something that I observed, right? So my father is very quick to action. If he has an idea, the execution is relatively fast, right? So he doesn't sit on ideas for too long. So I guess that just by watching him growing up, I had that mindset, right? And when I was in Australia, I just didn't overthink it. I was like, oh, let's learn sales. Surely sales is going to help me. Like sales is the number one skill in business and in life. It's not going to damage me. Learning how to deal with rejections, learning how to negotiate, learning how to speak to different types of people, learning how to develop resilience is not going to damage me. That was my mindset. And then once I mastered sales, my mindset was, okay, now I know how to sell. Let's master leadership. Surely that's not going to damage me, okay? And then once I mastered leadership, I was like, okay, let's open a company. Surely that's not going to be detrimental either. It's going to be a great experience, and so on and so forth. So that's how I took it at the time. It's not necessarily how I think right now, but at the time, that's how I used to think.
And was it a good idea to open that company at all times? Because you said, it's not gonna damage you. But hearing from your stories before, you had ups and downs.
Absolutely.
Maybe you can go into because it's a very interesting story how you, initially, basically you rebuilt the thing 3 times over, right? Or 2 times?
2 times. Yeah, 2 times. Yeah.
So you get into sales. You were good at sales immediately. Maybe the accent helped a lot, man. So
probably.
Yeah. You went in with a lot of enthusiasm. You did well. You started your first team. You built your first team. Start your first company. You think, now I'm gonna get money. I'm gonna make it here in Australia. And then how did it then fold out for you?
Great question. So, like you said, sales was easy. I learned leadership. I built a team. I started my own company. And again, Tareq, I think what happened was, I started making real money for the first time. Because when
what is real money?
Well, at the time, we're talking back then. I remember the first time that I made 5K in a week, and then I made the first time 10K in a week. And then that we really used to think weekly back then.
But that's interesting, Patrick. I don't want to, interrupt you, but thinking about someone who's grown up with such an successful entrepreneur back home, his father, that you consider 5K a week real money, also speaks the way your father raised you, because like a lot of kids who would have been raised in an environment where their father makes
they wouldn't even look at it.
They would think 5K is a fun weekend in Monaco.
Absolutely, but do you know why? Because when I was working in the family business, I didn't get paid.
At all?
At all.
Nothing?
A few $100s here and there. Because his mindset was, one day this is going to be yours anyway.
But didn't you say, man, you're making all this money off of me.
I did.
And I'm getting paid less than if I worked at a fucking cashier.
I did. Look, do you know Gary Vee?
Yeah.
When he says the story about working in his father's liquor store?
I don't know the
Okay, so he always says he worked in his father's liquor store up until the age of 34 years old. And he helped his father building this store and was getting paid a minimum wage working there. I can relate to that story a lot.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, man, like rationally speaking, you're 100% right. At the time, I was just working the family business because the mindset was one day this is gonna be mine anyway. And there was always the talk, one day this is gonna be yours anyway. So yes, I took some money here and there just to survive, but I wasn't making money at all. So me personally, I never seen the money coming into my own bank account.
But you never seen him splurge, live large?
He doesn't splurge, he doesn't live large. No, it's not one of those characters. He's extremely conservative. He invests a lot. He builds a lot of stuff. He does a lot of business ventures. But as far as living large, no, I never seen that. I never seen that. And I've seen a lot of my friends, you know, back in the days in Switzerland, that was raised the opposite way. 18 years old, driving a Lamborghini, having all this money given by their parents. That never happened to me. Like my father never gave me, and never gave anyone else in my family money. That was always the mindset, right? And if he gave us something, we had to earn it. So for me, the first time that I made $5,000, that was real money because I never had money of my own. I've seen money flowing into the business. I helped getting the business making millions of dollars every single year. But as far as me getting the money personally, I never did. So the first time that I saw 5K in a week, that was great. Then I saw 10, then I saw 15, then I saw 20, then I saw 25. And I was like, wow, life is incredible. I'm on track to be a multi-millionaire by the end of this year. I got this figured out. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna open 2 or 3 more businesses. And I started diversifying very, very quickly. And as a consequence, I stopped paying attention to my core business. The problem back then is my core business didn't have foundations that were strong enough. As I was building all these new business ventures that I was working on, I stopped paying attention to this one. This one stopped producing money because my attention went somewhere else. And therefore, this business was the one subsidizing all the other ones. So before I knew it, I lost everything. So that's what happened.
What other business did you start? I remember when I visited you in Australia, you were fucking selling supplements.
Green eggs.
Yeah, green supplements, yeah.
It was a green supplement, right? It was a green supplement, yeah, for sure. That was the main one that I started at the time. I had a couple more that I was working on, very small, but I invested a lot of my time in that green supplement business. You ask me why right now, and you ask me, can you rationally explain to me why you started a green supplement business? I don't fucking know, right? I didn't know anything about supplements, but I just wanted to try. I just wanted to learn how to build online funnels, and I just wanted to try. And to be honest, you know, we managed to succeed in certain aspects because we signed a contract with Anytime Fitness Australia to put our product in 364 gyms at the time with exclusivity for a green powder. So we were moving, wasn't making money, and we were moving. I guess then what happened at the time, this wasn't making money, and to get into the 364 gyms, I had to invest quite a lot of money because I had to produce the product in a certain way. These started to fall apart, and therefore I started to freak out a little bit. And before I knew it, I lost it.
When you say you lost it, what does that mean? Like, you're saying you're making 10, 20, 30K a week in profits. You're like, okay, cool, this is working out. I'm going to be a millionaire. Did you end up making your first million, or did it fall apart before you made your first million?
No, it fell apart before I made my first million.
What was that feeling like?
Wasn't great, because not only I lost it, but then it got to the point where I had to use the cash reserve, right? So the money that technically was money that I had to pay to the government. I'm sure works the same way here, right? You put the money aside on your bank account and you pay the government every quarter.
It's not mandatory. You should.
You should.
But you can always use all the money that you have in your bank account, yeah.
But you have to pay the government.
You have to, of course, otherwise you go to jail.
You have to pay the government, right? So I started using that money. So then I dig a hole for myself of $200 and something thousand minus because I was using the cash reserve. So the feeling was terrible, but looking back today, I'm so grateful that I experienced that. Okay, because that taught me many lessons. Because in reality, I say right now that I lost the business because I diversified too quickly. That is true, but I also lost the business because I had terrible habits that year, right? Terrible. I was going out too much. I was drinking a little bit more than I should have. I didn't exercise as much as I should have. I was smoking too much. I was living an irregular life. Like, I was still working hard. I was showing up every single day. but I can't sit here and tell you that I was living a lifestyle that allowed me to maximize my energy levels. And you know, when you run a business, having high energy levels is extremely important, right? So that was detrimental in that aspect. So the feeling was terrible, but because of that feeling and because of that fuel, then I managed to build the company that I had today, starting from 2019. I lost everything in 2018, started again in 2019, and then by the end of 2019, I became a millionaire anyway. So it was quick.
And this lifestyle change and starting to going out, smoking more, living the good life, you know, like the most entrepreneurs, when they start off, they wanna live that life, you know? Is that something when you know, shit hit the fan and you understood why your father lived in a conservative way? Was that something you look back on it and you're like, now I understand why my dad is, you know, low key and he doesn't do these types of things? Or did you have another association with it?
I can't say that I sat there and thought about my father at that time. All I did, I remember this. I remember being New Year's Eve 2018, and I remember feeling, you know, internally conflicted with myself, because there is nothing worse than saying something to other people, but knowing deep inside that you're not being the person that you are promoting. And that's something that I've never been like that. Like towards the end of the year, I felt that I became that guy. I was promoting a message, but I wasn't living the message. So I was there on New Year's Eve, and I remember the countdown. When the countdown finished, I just went home. And I sat there for 4 hours. And I started dissecting what happened in 2018. Like I started thinking back about every single month. I analyzed every single quarter, and I just wrote a summary. I wrote like a 6-7 pages summary of that year. And then I asked myself this. I'm like, well, what are the wins from 2018? Like in business and personally. And the list was this long. Maybe 2 wins. I can't even remember what those were. And then I asked myself, what are the losses? Like, what are things that I'm not proud of about this year that are not helping me getting to the level where I want to get? And the list was this long. So all I did, Tareq, was simple. I'm like, surely removing this is not going to damage me. Surely it's going to help. So let me remove all this bullshit. Let me be disciplined. Let me just focus on one thing, okay? And let me see what's going to happen in the next 12 months. And that's how it happened.
And is anyone from that team that you built in 2018, 2017?
No.
Someone still around?
No.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because I wasn't the person that I needed to be to keep them around at the time.
And well, we can talk about leadership in the later part. So going forward, you rebuild it. You then became a millionaire for the first time by yourself. And then you had to rebuild it again. Why did you have to rebuild it one more time?
No, so I didn't have to rebuild it one more time. What happened is this. So 2019, we built the company. 2020, COVID happened. So it's the story that I told you last night, right? So we had to escape from Melbourne. Melbourne was the second longest lockdown in the world. And we had to leave for 1.5 years. When we came back to Melbourne, a lot of people that were there during the lockdown, they just didn't come back working again. But at that time, we had the foundations. We just had to rebuild to the volume that we used to have before COVID. Does that make sense? So we didn't lose anything. We didn't lose the core people at the time. Was just because of COVID, we got impacted.
All right, so fast forward to today, you have built this organization to 160 people, 140 working in sales. You're doing really well. You have you've been to a few of our events, also speaking at one of our events.
3 events now.
Yeah, it's true. You went to all of our international events.
Monaco, Dubai, and Warsaw.
Yeah. So and we've tagged along in an interesting phase of where we were standing and where you were standing. It was 2023, correct?
Monaco was, the first event was last year, so 2023,
2023. So one thing that I've noticed about, hanging out with your guys is that, and that's something I told you as well, is I caught myself at that, is how good you are at developing people to, really be good students, to really want to be sharp all the time. They're on point. And you have this talent and also this skill set of developing people really, really well. That's what I want to talk about with you.
Okay.
Because most of our viewers, they are young entrepreneurs that are starting to build their teams. They have less than 50 employees, and they are really starting to focus on the first core 3 or 4 people that are going to build the business with them. What are your principles when it comes to hiring the right type of people? What do you look for? Is it culture? Is it skills? Is it experience? And how do you keep them?
Okay. Well, let's start from hiring. Okay. So the last thing that I look for when I hire people is experience. In fact, I don't necessarily, I'm talking about sales here, okay, for sales roles. I don't necessarily value experience that much, because what I found is that when you hire for sales positions, more often than not, if you hire people with a lot of experience, they come in with a fixed mindset because they already think that they know how to do the job, and they're not going to be amazing students because from their point of view, they already know what needs to be done. Okay, so for me, experience is not relevant at all. What I look for is always a point to prove, which is what I was talking about in Warsaw as well, right? So that's what I'm after. I'm after people that come from poverty and want to prove a point. I'm after people that want to provide to their family. I'm after people that want to retire their mom. I'm after people that come from small villages, that come from small realities, and they want to turn their life around. I'm after people that maybe had a similar situation to mine, right? Which is both coming from a small village and having a successful father that to a certain extent you want to make proud of, you. So I'm after people like that. So that's my main value for hiring, is a point to prove. And all I'm trying to evaluate in the interview process is this, which you can only evaluate to a certain extent, obviously, but is this person willing to work hard? Is this person going to be a good student? And does this person have the right attitude? Is this the type of person that focuses on solutions rather than problems? Is this the type of person that potentially has a high level of resourcefulness? And as long as I have the work ethic, the student mentality, and the attitude, then I can work with those people, I can mold them, and I can teach them everything that it is that they need to learn, right? Because in sales, when you really think about it, you don't really need anything else, do you? If somebody is willing to put in the work, if somebody is willing to keep that positive mentality 24/7, and if somebody is willing to study and learn, they're going to be good at sales. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, that's the most important thing. Obviously, if they have a stutter or anything, it's going to be difficult, but yeah, 100%. I think sales is also the only job, to be honest, where, one of the only professions where a beginner could be better. Like someone who's on their first day could have a better performance than someone who has been doing it for 20 years.
Absolutely.
Which is weird. There's nothing in this world really where you could beat someone who's been doing it every day for 20 years.
Absolutely.
Except for sales. There's nothing. Like if you want to kick a ball, but someone's been playing football for 20 years, even if it's the shittiest player
they're
in the
going
world,
to demolish you.
they're going to be a little bit better than you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's weird.
It is.
So is sales really about skill?
No, because it is, but it isn't, right? Because that's the overall concept of resourcefulness and resources. To me, that's what it comes down to. You know, when people start working in sales, they don't have the resources. They don't have the knowledge. They don't necessarily know what it is that they are doing right at the moment. They don't have the network. Maybe to start with, they don't have access to the best pay structure, but they have the willingness to do it. They have the passion. They have the work ethic to attack it. And therefore, they manage to overcompensate the lack of resources with a lot of resourcefulness. Whereas a lot of players that have been around for many years, right? What you said before, if somebody has been in sales for 20 years, usually what happens is somebody that has been around for 20 years has a lot of resources. They have a big network, they have a lot of contacts, they have access to the best pay structures, they feel that their job is 100% secure because they've been there for 20 years. And therefore, their resourcefulness is nowhere near where it used to be at the very beginning when they started doing the job, which is why I love sales, right? Because it really puts, somebody on the spotlight. It really shows whether somebody has that attitude that we talked about. Because if somebody starts a sales job, they don't know anything about sales, and they manage to beat all the performers that have been there for ages, that gives you a real picture of who that person really is, right? So, absolutely, I love that too.
And when you mold salespeople, we talk about it a lot, and I constantly talk about it with my guys, but they still don't get it, right? Is that the way to go from making good money to making amazing money is to make sure that other people do the job for you, you know? And it's difficult for good salespeople, in my opinion, to become a good sales leader because they don't really understand why you don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you get it? Why don't you make 150 phone calls a day? Because they when I started in sales, I remember I took out my 5th candidate, and he's like, I'm scared of talking to that person.
And you were thinking, what the fuck is wrong with you?
No, I didn't understand. I'm like, what do you mean you're scared of what? He's like, how do you overcome the fear of talking to people? Because I didn't have to do the process of overcoming the fear. When I got to the field, I was like, okay,
you were ready.
Done, let's go. And I didn't think about if I'm scared to talk to that person because I'm trying to be fucking rich, I'm trying to stop being poor.
Yeah, you didn't care.
So I didn't understand the process of having a why. I then had to reteach myself. How do you start to, educate someone in leadership who's very talented? Do you tell them, listen, Tom, you're very talented at sales. You're going to be frustrated with the first people. How do you preempt? Do you preempt it? Do you not? Do you let them run into the first problems? Or do you not let them lead? Do you just let them do sales until they come to you and they say, I want to do leadership? How's the process?
Yeah, look, that's a good question, and I wish that there was a step-by-step blueprint process that works every single time, but ultimately there isn't, and it's not that perfect because we're always dealing with people, right? And sometimes people are very situational. But you're very right in what you said there. The best salespeople are the worst leaders because the best salespeople don't fucking understand people. And it's quite paradoxical because the best salespeople understand customers. They can make sales. So they know how to sell to people, but then they don't know how to sell, to their people, the people that they train, what it is that they want them to do, simply because they don't understand them, right? Typically, the best salespeople are dominant people, which are very task-oriented. And therefore, if they are training somebody that is dominant as well, they find it very easy to train because they're exactly the same type of personality and the job is easy. But the moment that they train somebody that has a steady personality or a compliant personality, somebody that is not the same as them, they struggle because they just don't understand the other person, like what you just said there, which is the same problem that I had. What I do with dominant salespeople, ultimately, Tareq, I do preempt it. But then you know it better than me. Dominant salespeople, they also believe that the rules that apply to everybody else don't apply to them. So you preempt it, but their mindset is, thank you for letting me know. but that's not gonna happen to me. You're a dominant guy, but that's not gonna happen to me because I'm special. And I know how to avoid this from happening and so on and so forth. So you can't teach anything to anybody that is not willing to learn. And that's the lesson that I've learned, right? So I preempt them. I try to coach them. I try to teach. But if I see that there is a lot of pushback, I stop pushing because you can't force knowledge onto somebody that doesn't want to acquire that knowledge. So what I then allow them to do is to fuck it up. Okay? Because I let them experience pain and I pull back before it's too late. So
when is too late?
When they're fully burned out, when they're lost in darkness, right? So I let them experience pain, but not too much. Let me explain. I don't let them lose 180 people before I teach them a lesson because then may be too late. Now they don't believe in themselves anymore. The self-esteem is down to the ground. But I let them lose a couple. I let them lose a couple. And then when they're all sad and depressed and down and they come to me seeking for help, I'm just like, what's happening now?
Yeah, it's also one of my philosophies. I always tell when people ask me, our customers, how do I teach them this and that? I usually use this technique. I speak to the crowd while address I run a speech to the crowd.
But you address an individual.
Actually it's directed at one person, but they don't know it's directed at them. So I give I put all my people together, 20 people, and then I might want to bring across a point to Alex, for example. So I give an impact which mainly is for Alex, but I talk to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'm like, okay, at the end of this speech, if someone has questions about it, my door is open, but I don't directly look at Alex, I'm just addressing everyone. So when he comes to me and asks me about it, I know he's willing to receive.
Yeah.
if he doesn't walk through the door, he walks into this office again and fucks it up again.
Yeah.
I know I have to run it 3, 4, 5
Another
times.
impact. Yeah.
Do you do something similar? Do you have other techniques that you do?
No, I use exactly the same technique that you just mentioned. I did a video about that. People ask me, when you do public speaking and you have a crowd with so many different people, with us 160 people, they ask me, how do you create a speech that is relevant for everybody in the room? And my answer was, you don't. It's impossible to create a speech that is relevant to everybody in the room. You choose your target and then you deliver a message to address one person or 2 or 3 people in that crowd. And that's the objective, exactly what you said there. So I do exactly the same thing. But then the only other technique that I have is I let them fuck up. I do what you do exactly. I let them fuck up. I wait for them to come to me. If they don't come to me, then I might do a public speaking speech like what you just said. And I talk about the importance of seeking help when you need it. I talk about the importance of networking, especially when you're down. I talk about the importance of putting the ego on the side. And being proud means being stupid. So I let them understand you're being a fucking idiot because you're not coming to me asking for help, so they come. And then when they come asking for help, in a moment where they're experiencing pain, now they really listen. Now they really internalize the lessons, and now they're really going to take them on board, and they're going to be open to your advice.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? The same thing is, people sometimes ask me, hey, how do you train somebody to do sales when you start somebody in sales and it's their second day and they give you feedback? Has it ever happened to you here? Like you start a new guy, is very cocky, and he gives the trainer feedback on the second day.
Not in my company, but when I did it with clients, they're like, why don't we do it this way? And I looked at him, I'm like, motherfucker.
Motherfucker. Yeah, exactly. So even in that instance, I teach to my trainers, I say this. They call me sometimes, not anymore, now they get it, but they used to call me frustrated. They're like, man, what do I do here? Because this guy's cocky, he's giving me feedback, what do I do? And I say, just say this. You're right, man. You know what? You don't need me anymore. Best of luck. Now let's compete. It's you and me head to head this week. Let's compete. Let's see who wins. And then I say, that week you need to do your best, not just to beat them, but to rip them apart, right? To fully demolish them. And then at the end of the week, you just go and say, Tareq, how did you go? Oh, I only did this. Brother, I did this. Here's the medal. I can help you. I can teach you how to be as good as me, if not better, but you need to allow me. Because the first couple of days I was trying, you were pushing back, I let you go, this is what happened. We got 1 or 2 options right now. You can continue doing it your way, or we can work together. Which one do you want?
I already have the question of my clients in mind, and they will be asking me, and what if I can't beat him? What would you say to that?
Well, then you got a bigger problem. That's what I would fucking say. I'm like, make sure that you do. Make sure that you do. I don't have an answer to them, man. If you can't beat then a new person with no experience whatsoever, then in my opinion, you may have a bigger problem. Extend the timeline then. If you're not confident that you can beat in the short term, at least beat him in the medium term.
No, I agree. I mean, if you can't beat a new person, and if you're actually worried that you might not beat a new person, that means that you're maybe not ready yet to even train anyone.
Exactly. You're lacking confidence here, right? Yeah. You don't have the right level of self-esteem and confidence to be a great leader, right? Because leaders, they are supposed to rise under pressure. So if the moment that a small amount of pressure has been placed on you, you crumble, maybe we need to work on a little bit more.
One of the things that I've noticed is, when I started in Australia with the business, you immediately get pitched the idea of running your own team. So leadership is something that kind of is mandatory, right?
Absolutely.
When I came to Germany back, I kind of built a different organization because we're dealing with high ticket, we're dealing with high ticket customers. And I have noticed that sometimes leaving people just in sales is the best. And one thing I've noticed here in Germany is, I'm not sure if you have made this and a similar experience, is leadership is something that people should want to do themselves, Like when I used to, kind of force the idea of having to lead people, like when it wasn't something that they wanted to do to get ahead, but they wanted to do it because it was, pre-programmed in the career structure, it didn't work out as well. Like the best leaders I have were the ones that said to me, Tareq, can I train people? Because otherwise the business won't get ahead. They were thinking in terms of like growing the business, and they themselves realized they have to train a new line of people. But the people that said, I want to be a leader, and I asked them why, and they're like, because I have to, turned out to be the worst leaders. Have you made a similar experience? Because with you, a business is different, right? It's
It's designed for leadership, and you're right. And I would agree. Like the business where we started back in the days, that was the only option to make it was to become a leader, right? So in my business, that is still big. One thing that I did change, I don't put as much pressure in becoming a leader as much as they put it on us back in the days. Because remember, back in the days, they promoted very short time frames as well. I don't know if you recall, but it was like within 12 months, you need to run. In fact,
my second week of I did the record of sales in the first week. Second week, I had people with me.
Yeah, people with you.
It was like the sixth day in the field. I had one guy with me.
Yeah, so it was forced upon it. Right now, the way I hire, like I always say to people, we have two jobs here. There is the sales career, and then there is the management career. Like you can decide. Like I don't force leadership anymore. I expect people to get promoted to a certain stage where they can decide whether they want to become a leader, whether they want to build a team. So that's my baseline. But whether they want to go for it or not, I make it fully optional. Because otherwise, if you force it, what happens is, and if you just expect it no matter what happens is what you said, right? You're actually destroying people. Because some people just need longer. And then you force them into a leadership role, but they are not ready. And it's like becoming a father at the age of 16 years old. It's not necessarily good for people, not all the time, right? Because sometimes people are not ready, and you put all that pressure, they start making stupid decisions, and they become sad in essence, right? So, no, I don't force it anymore, and I agree with you. It's something that people should ask for, and it's something that people should come to you with, right? And not the other way around.
What's the things that, because you talk about it a lot, is being what you promote you are, like actually being what you tell people you are. What are the like principles or values that you hold on to yourself that have helped you be the best version for your people that people look up to? Like what are the things that you always make sure that you do in front of your people, or that you are actually?
That I'm real, right? And I met a lot of people in my career that I know them. And I know the type of business that they run, and I know the amount of money that they make. But then they jump on social media and they create a story and they say things that are not true. Like I know that they're not true. And they say that they make X amount of money, but I know that they're not making that amount of money. And they say that they've done certain things that I know that they haven't done. I can't do that. Like I genuinely cannot do that. I don't know how else to say it. Like I was speaking to a kid a few months ago. He's a marketing guy, and he was giving me advice. And he was like, oh, but you know, Patrick, you should say this on social media. You should promote this on social media. And I was like, yeah, but that's not me. Like, that's not true. Like, that's not me. Why should? But it doesn't matter. It's called perception, and it's called positioning, and it's called leverage, and it's called this. I can't do that, Tareq. So I think what helps me with my people, I'm real. Like I don't bullshit. I say exactly what it is that it is. I say, if they ask me how much money do you have, I tell them to the cent. If they ask me how much turnover, I tell them. If they ask me whatever question, I'm real. And I think that what works well, because people can see through the bullshit. And especially right now, like you know this, like I'm sure you deal with a lot of companies as well that might have fallen into that trap. Especially right now with social media, it's very easy to fall into that trap. And if you fall into that trap, that's called internal confliction. And for me, there is nothing worse than being internally conflicted with yourself, because that's the ultimate depression and that's the ultimate sadness. When you keep saying that you do certain things, that you live a certain life, but in reality, you know that you don't.
And how would you, if you were to talk to a beginner, where there's not much, okay? There's not much turnover, there's not much money in the bank account. Like, what advice would you give him when it comes to being the right type of leader? Because, like, when you're starting out and you don't have much, it's kind of discouraging, right, for the person that you're leading. Great
question. Look, in my opinion, is this: people don't follow people that have money. People follow people that have a vision, and that's the advice that I would give to somebody starting out. If you don't have the money in the bank, it doesn't matter. If you don't have the nice car, it doesn't matter. If you don't have the office, it doesn't matter. If you don't have the suits, it doesn't matter. but you gotta make sure that you have a vision, and you better make sure that you believe in that vision, and you gotta keep talking about that vision, because the more you talk about it, the more you're gonna force yourself to take the action to acquire that vision, because the human brain seeks consistency between what we say and what we do. So if I keep promoting a certain vision, even if today I don't believe in it, okay? But if I keep talking about it, I keep looking at my people and say, one day, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make sure that I'm taking certain actions that are gonna get me one step closer to that vision. Like you met Braden, and I'm sure that you can agree with me that he's a great guy, right? Right now he's very developed, he runs a big team. When I hired Braden was February 2019. I was $200 and something thousand in debt. I had no money. I was renting a desk in a co-working office space. That's when I hired him. And you know what I told him? I was honest. And I said, listen, this is what I've done. I built this business. I lost it all last year. This is why I lost it. So I don't want to bullshit you. I don't want to tell you that I have money that I don't have. I lost it all. This is my plan this year. This is my plan this year. And I promise you that if you have faith in me and if you believe in this vision, in 12 months from now, we're going to be here. If we are not going to be there, you don't even have to quit. I'm going to fire you, because you shouldn't follow me if I promise you something that I can maintain and something that I can't keep. That's what I would advise to beginners, Tareq. To be completely honest, I would never advise pretend that you're rich. No, don't do that. I would never advise go and rent supercars that you don't own. Don't do that, please. Be real. Remember that one thing that doesn't exist in this world as much as it used to back in the days is authenticity. That's why people like my father, they don't like the new world, right? Because back in their days, it was real, man. It was on a handshake and be like, cool, deal, give me your word, yes, done, no agreements, nothing signed, let's move. And right now it's full of shit. So if you're real in a world full of shit, that's worth way more money than what you think.
I agree. No, I mean, look, when I came back from Australia in 2018, yeah, something like that, and I started salesHAX back up again. I hired Ralph. He was the first guy I hired, January 2019, no. When was it? Yeah, January 2019 I had Ralph. Around the time the same with Braden.
Yeah.
And I had that's when the Bentley GT came out, the first edition of the Continental, the new one. And I had this pamphlet because I went to the dealership. Man, I had $3,000 in my bank account.
Yeah, he told me that story. It's a good story. Say.
I had $3,000 in my bank account. I went to the dealership. I configured my Bentley. It was blue, whatever, a nice, cool car. It was $300,000 back then. Now it's way more expensive. And then he came to the interview and he looks at the pamphlet. He's like, and I'm in the shittiest office you could possibly imagine. It looks like a bunker from Hitler's time.
No, I can clearly see it.
And it was my office was 20 square meters. Tiny office, one desk. He's sitting in front of me on a IKEA chair, like a wooden IKEA chair. I'm telling him the vision, whatever, and he's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "This is the car I'm gonna buy in 3 years." He's like, "Oh, cool, yeah." And he believed it because I said it with such a conviction is that, no, I didn't say I'm going to buy it in 3 years. I said, that's the car I'm getting. I'm not saying that I got it now. I'm just saying that's the car I'm going to get, right?
That's it.
And he believed it. And that's because I believed that's the car I'm getting. It was no doubt in my mind. It didn't matter that if I had 3,000, I didn't tell him that I had much money. I just told him that's the car I'm getting. And he believed it. And fast forward now, the car's in the garage. I don't even drive it right now, but it's in the garage. And I believe that's the thing, when you have nothing, you still have yourself. And when you have yourself, the concept of you is you can stretch it so far because what you are is basically your actions and your thoughts. And what you are as a person can change drastically. Like, one day you could be disciplined in the gym, disciplined at work, have positive mindset, be on track, have your goals set. That's a version of you that's very powerful. And then another day you could be
a loser,
like the opposite, a loser, and nothing changed. It's you still, you and you, but like the effect it has on people is night and day. It is more than every office you could have, more than every validation, because
more than every car.
People see every day what you are, and most people think that people follow us because we have the cars and the money.
No.
But they used to follow us the same way. Even I believe back in the day, people used to follow me even more because I was more accessible. Back in the day. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. So you're not a fan of the statement, fake it till you make it.
No. Like, I think I interpret that statement in my own way. And it's like, fake it in a sense that, live as if the vision that you have is already happening today. Like, act as if what it is that you want is already in your life right now. Behave as if all your dreams have already come to your reality. Be the man before you become that man. Yes, fake it. That's my interpretation. Fake it in the sense that you gotta force that behavior anyway. Some people are like, man, once I make millions, I'm gonna behave that way. No. Force that behavior right now. Like, fake it initially if you have to, but force it until that behavior becomes normal. That's my own interpretation of the fake it until you make it, which isn't go in your office and print some fucking dollar bills to pretend that your wallet is full, and then when you walk on the street and you see a Ferrari taking a selfie next to it, pretending that it's yours, and Photoshop I've seen all of this, by the way, and Photoshop you sitting on a business class with Emirates, or Photoshop you standing next to a private jet. I've seen all this shit. Don't do that. Like, in my opinion, don't do that, because remember, the biggest asset that you have that is gonna follow you forever, it's your reputation. And you can lose the house, you can lose the million, you can lose the office. But when you lose your reputation, especially with people that you care about, it's not that easy to bring it back. If you lose a building, you can't rebuild it. If you lose your reputation, some people are not gonna allow you to rebuild it. Some people are just gonna write you off. So that's why I'm not a big fan of that. Because I'm like, there is nothing more important than your reputation. And my guys always ask me that question too, by the way. They're always like, Patrick, for you it's easy. You walk in and it's your business and you have this and you have that. So you have frame, okay? You got a lot of frame, and therefore your opinion is more impactful. And I'm like, yes, I understand. You're right in saying that. But remember that there was a time where I didn't have frame. There was a time where there wasn't no office, no clients, no money. So how the fuck did I hire the first guy, and then the second, and then the third? Because like you said before, I was passionate. I had a vision. I was going somewhere. And people have always this belief that everyone has a vision. They always ask, but man, if you teach everything that you know to somebody else, they're just gonna take your place. Like, why would you train somebody to be as good as you are? Because they're gonna dethrone you. Like, they're gonna take your chair. And I'm like, no, man, like you don't understand. Just because somebody is talented doesn't mean that that person has a vision. Ultimately, people they're gonna follow other people with vision, right? So make sure that you have that. That's all I can say. Promote your vision.
That's a very important topic. People always ask me, they're like, why doesn't Alex start his own business? And I'm like, if Alex wanted to start his own business, he would have 2 years ago when he figured out the first 5,000 euros. Because And there's this concept of kings and druids. I'm not if you're familiar with it, where they categorize people into characters.
No, never heard.
The druid there's a king and a druid. A druid is someone who is, I'm not sure what the English word for it is, but it's in German it's druide. He's basically sometimes mistaken for the king, but he needs his king as this last resort of safety. He needs the safety net, this person where when everything crashes down, he still has one person to turn to and be like, Patrick, what now?
What now? Yeah.
And then there are kings who don't need that person.
Anyone else.
So you have basically the general and the king, skill-wise, they're the same. The only thing that sets them apart is that the king is okay with not having anyone to turn to. He's okay with the loneliness. He's okay with being the last stop before disaster.
Which is not easy.
Which is the hardest part ever, So when my clients ask me, they're like, why should I teach my sales guy so much? He could run off with my clients. And I'm like, listen, the reason why you're a business owner is the reason because you can deal with the ultimate failure, which is, crashing down and burning to nothing. The employee is an employee because he might be as good as you, but he cannot deal mentally with the pressure it takes to be like, okay, if I fuck this up, I'm by myself. I'm going to be the one picking up the pieces, if you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, the reality is there is always a chance. There is always a chance that you teach everything that you know to somebody and they're going to open their own business and compete with you. There is always a chance. But if you never teach everything that you know to somebody, there is also the 100% chance that you're never going to grow to the level that you want to get to because you have a scarcity mindset. You're living in fear, right? You're living in fear, and rather than prioritizing growth, you're holding people back. So I think Patrick Bet-David explains it very well. He says, when you're a business owner, you only have 3 priorities. Number 1, you got to have a vision that is big enough to fit everybody in it. And if you don't have that and your people leave you and they start their own business, don't be fucking surprised. You are running a selfish business that was only good for you, right? Second, you got to invest the money back into your business. Don't fall into the trap of just making your business your own personal ATM machine. Otherwise, people are going to see that. Yes, reward yourself. Absolutely. Spend money, show a good lifestyle, but also you got to grow the business. And third, make sure that you give people the chance for entrepreneurship. Because people don't necessarily need to run their own company to become entrepreneurs. They can become an entrepreneur within somebody else's infrastructure, which more often than not is much better.
100%. I myself would not run the business that I run if someone else could do it for me. Like, I would rather work for myself than own the business that I'm working at right now, because I think I'd have less headache. I'd make the same amount of money, if not more, because you know how it is as a business owner. There's months where you don't make money.
Yeah, zero.
There's months where you even lose the entire profit of last year. You know what I mean? Like, on average, if I were to work in my company SalesHAX, I would have made way more money than I made for myself, but that's another story. And there's a last quote that I once heard from Bill Gates. He was asked, what if we invest in our people and they leave? And he said, okay, and what if we don't invest in our people and they stay? You know?
What's worst?
Yeah.
Again, scarcity mentality. If you always live with that fear that if you make somebody good, they're going to overtake you, you're not going to go very far. Right?
I wanted to ask you about mentors, because that's something that's been on my mind a lot lately is, when we started out in the business, the importance of mentors was preached to us. And I still believe in mentors, but not in the way that I used to have one mentor and I copy everything that he does. How do you right now, work with mentors? Do you work with mentors, or do you pick out experts for the fields that you need advice in? Like, how did that change over time? Or did it change at all?
No, it did. It really did, because similar to you, I used to be exactly the same. I had predominantly a mentor, and I just assumed that everything that person was doing, I had to do, right? Whereas right now, I try more to pick people that I can learn from for specific things, rather than assuming everything that this person does, I need to replicate, right? So that's how I do it. And then, look, I'm not gonna lie, I do speak a lot with my father as well, which is not right about everything, but I do seek at least feedback or advice or opinions about important decisions that I make. But as far as mentors, right now I'm at the stage where I try to learn more specific things that I know that I need to learn from people that I know that are very good at those things, rather than having one person that I just try to emulate at 360 degrees.
And when did that change, and when do you think should it change for your people? Because if my guys hear it and they're like, yeah, I want to do the same thing, for most of the guys in my company, I would be like, no, it's too early for you. In the beginning, you should stick to one guy, because you don't know anything yet. So just emulating him will get you to the point where you're going to do good. When do you think this changes? Like, at what level? How much money should they make, or how much knowledge should they have in one place?
Great question. Look, what I always say to my guys is, until at least you manage to do what I was doing when I was on your level, shut the fuck up, because you're not entitled to have any sort of opinion. Just shut up, listen, emulate, replicate, because you cannot innovate where you cannot even create a minimum baseline required, right? So I can't give you an exact answer about how much money or what level. All I know is this. I agree with you. I don't think that you should learn from way too many people at the very beginning, because the reality is this: if you start learning from a lot of people at the very beginning, you're gonna get conflicting information. It's like when people go on the internet, one guy tells you, real estate is dead, buy crypto. And so you're like, fuck, I'm gonna buy crypto. The next guy tells you, crypto is gonna go to zero, buy real estate. And then you're like, the next guy tells you, you know what, real estate and crypto are both gonna die. Just do digital. Then you're like, what the fuck do I need to do? Just pick somebody that has done it, emulate the person, and try to get at least to a level where the person got when that person was at your stage. That's kind of my advice. And what I say to my guys is this, what I say to my people. Once you have the first $1 million in the bank, then we can start talking a little bit more about seeking advice here and there. Until then, just listen. This is what I say to my guys. Then I'm not saying that's what you gotta tell yours or whoever is watching right now, your employees or your salespeople. That's the way I do it. I'm like, for me, teaching you how to make $1 million, it's very, very simplistic. It's very easy. Why would you go and ask somebody else other opinions when we already know that my framework is gonna work 100%? Then from there onward, once we get to that level, yes, you can start networking to different people about different topics because you have proven a baseline.
What's the quickest time you've gotten someone from zero to their first million?
Quickest time. Revenue or in the bank?
Well, let's start with revenue first.
For my internal guys, for my internal teams. Actually, I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I haven't measured that. No, for my internal team, I can't tell you a number. No, I never measure in terms of speed, because now I've been working with the same people with the same leaders really for the last 5 years. And for me, I'm not gonna lie, I don't measure revenue that much like I measure profit, right? So I can't answer to that question.
When it comes to getting them to their first million in private, on the private level, have you ever measured that?
Well, internally to our sales guys, right now we haven't got anybody organically to the $1 million. Next year is the first year that we are on track to create internal millionaires.
Great. Yeah, interesting.
Actual millionaires though, not like revenue headlines, like I'm talking $1 million in the bank, saved, net worth. Next year is our first year that we are now on track to do that. Again, I'm gonna tell you exactly how it is. I'm not gonna tell you things that I haven't done. This is the reality, right? And I can also tell you that we have some internal people that we work with that are already millionaires, but I'm even gonna be more honest. These are not people that we train from the ground level up ourselves. They came and worked with us and they were already millionaires when they started working with us. So I don't want to take the credit. If you ask me personally, train organically from the ground level up internal people, we are doing it next year. And I'm 100% confident that next year we're going to have at least two internal people that started working with us as an intro-level employee that are going to officially become millionaires next year.
I want to go back to this being real topic, because people are going to ask, okay, so Patrick has been successful with leadership and he's saying he's real. So, but what are the character traits that you try to make your own real? Like, because you at one point had to decide on the character traits that you, Patrick, Cadei, are going to be. Right? So might be disciplined, might be dressing sharp, might be. So what are the things that you think is internalizing as your own character traits and making it real that are most beneficial for leadership? Like what are do's and don'ts in front of the people, and what is the most beneficial character trait set that you should make real? You should make a reality for yourself so that you thrive in leadership.
Yeah. Do's and don'ts. I guess my top rule when it comes to leadership that you never do, don't lie to your people. What I already said before, don't pretend, don't lie, because people can feel you before they hear you. And you can fool people for a certain period of time, but for an extended period of time, you're not gonna be able to fool anyone, right? So that would be my top line. Don't pretend that you're rich if you're not. That's probably my number one rule. It's very difficult to pretend that you're rich when you're broke. It's very fucking exhausting because people watch you anyway. They're like, oh, those shoes, I don't know, man. They look at your watch, they look at your suit, and they start thinking, the way you live doesn't align with this rich person that you describe. I call fucking bullshit. The restaurant where you take them, when you offer them drinks, like when you offer them, it's difficult to pretend to be rich. So never pretend that you're rich. Be real in that sense. My personal leadership style, I don't talk about money too much. I don't talk, and that could be a flaw of mine, by the way. I don't talk about my lifestyle too much, the money that I make too much. I always focus on the person that you become, right? For me, I have a character building leadership style rather than a financially freedom leadership style. Mm-hmm. That's my style. Because I'm a strong believer that if I teach you how to build character and become the person that you need to be to get rich, you're gonna be rich anyway. So that's how I do it. That's kind of the persona that I've incorporated in my leadership style, right? The next thing that I do as part of my leadership style, I give people time. Like, I generally care about my people. So I'm there. Like, if I need to set an example, I'm not afraid of being the first person showing up on a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. in the morning if somebody wants to learn something. I'm not afraid, still to this day, to pick up the phone at 10 p.m. at night if one of the guys that we have is really passionate, is doing really well, and he wants to learn something. Like, if you're doing your part, I'm gonna do mine and I'm gonna be there. I don't play too hard to catch if somebody is doing their part. I play hard to catch. If somebody's not doing their part, I'm always forever busy. You're never gonna find me on the face of the earth. But if somebody is doing their part and they wanna level up, I also give them my time, because to me, they earn my time, right? So I would say that's trait number 2. Trait number 3, I constantly learn. I love to learn. I love to acquire more knowledge. I love to network. I love to go and observe what other people do. I always try not to be egotistical, because it's very easy to fall into that trap, right? Once you start making a few millions of dollars, to be like, oh no, I figure everything out. No, there is always a bigger fish, which is why I'm here today as well. I told you last night. I came here because I wanted to ask you some questions about marketing as well, right? So I always try to learn, and I always try to remain a student, and I always promote that with my people as well, right? That I'm always a student, that I'm always learning, which is why when you observe there and you told me your guys always take notes, you guys always learn. Well, it's because I fucking take notes. Last time I was asking you questions, I was taking notes. You know, a lot of people are too egotistical to do that, and they're like, oh, Tareq is teaching me this. I'm gonna play the big boss here, and I'm not gonna write anything down. And I'm like, I don't have time for that shit. I want to get better. So these are some of the things that I do, man. Like, I don't know. I keep it simple. I lead from the front. I try to set the best possible example ever. I'm honest and I'm real, right, with what I say and what I promote. And I push the character building mindset rather than the money making, living a great life leadership style. Because for me, this is a byproduct of the order. And that's how I see it.
One last question for you is, why do you think some people have never enough? Like they see this entrepreneurial journey as a never-ending journey. Like your father, for example, he could have stopped working and pushing and keeping going long time ago.
Absolutely.
And some might argue like, okay, like in our position also, like why would we grow the business even more? I'm not saying that you and me, maybe you, but me definitely not. I could not retire right now and live my lifestyle forever, but I could stop growing the business and live this lifestyle forever. And people ask me, why do you keep pushing? And I don't really have an answer to that.
Well, I do. Why is Fernando Alonso still driving a Formula One at the age, I believe, of 42 years old? Why the fuck is he doing that? Why is he driving a car where he's risking his life every single race, where he knows that he's not going to come first anymore because he's too old, and he knows that he's got kids at home and he's potentially going to die every single race to ride this fucking car that has been driving for the last 20 or so years? So why is he doing that? Why is he still in that Formula One every single Sunday? Because he fucking loves it. Why is my father still there pushing and doing things or whatever? Because he loves it. And that's what you have, and that's what I have. There is a difference between doing business. Yes, the money is great, right? But if you just do it for the money, man, it's a lot. Business is gonna take a lot out of you. And I don't even know if it's financially worth it if you just do it for the money, because the things that you sacrifice, some of them you can't even fucking pay for. Let's be honest here, right? If you love it, if you genuinely love the game and you are genuinely in love with the game of business, And man, I have the pride of saying that I'm in love with business. And I always say even to my friends, sometimes the friends that I grew up with, they don't like to talk to me anymore because whenever I catch up with them, there is only one fucking thing that I want to talk about. Business. I don't give a shit about the birthday party that is coming up on the weekend. I couldn't fucking care less about the TV show that just came out. I don't give a fuck about the new movie. Yes, I go here and there, I want to watch it. I don't care about the new club that just opened in Ibiza. Ultimately, there is one fucking thing that I always want to talk about is business, is business, is business, is business, and is business. So that's your answer, Tareq. I guess some people have that love for the game and some people don't. It's the same reason why Cristiano Ronaldo is still playing football. Is the same reason why Fernando Alonso is still driving the Formula One. Is the same reason why Valentino Rossi is still on fucking motorbikes. That guy won everything that you could have possibly won. Why is he still on a motorbike? Doesn't have to prove anything to anybody because he loves it. And that's my answer.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. I don't know if I would answer it the same. To be honest, I don't know what else I would be doing because nothing really excites me as much as business. I'm not sure if I love it, but I guess I don't like anything else as much as I like business. You know what I mean? It's like,
at least you like it.
Yeah, I mean,
at least you like it.
But I fully, identify with the statement that you made when you speak to friends. Like last time when we ended the conference in Warsaw, I was sitting with my family. I love my family, you know. I come from a humble background.
Yeah,
you know? No one in my family is a business person. Everyone is a failed business person. is a normal employee, you know. So when they're sitting there, I told my wife and I shut off, you know, because they speak about the buses, at what time they ride, you know, and what coupons you should use to save money, and at what time you should book the flights to get the cheapest deal. And I'm sitting there, you know, and my brain shuts off, and it's off, and my wife is like, "Are you still here?
You okay?
Are you still here?" I'm like, and then I get home and I get mad, man. I start screaming. How the fuck are these guys for 3 hours speaking about how to save money on a flight instead of investing those 3 hours and speaking about how to make more money? They wouldn't have to worry about saving money on toothpaste. You know, they're speaking about how you buy toothpaste in bulk, how you can save, and it just bothers me out of my mind. I don't know. I guess people just different, yeah.
Small thinkers focus on cutting expenses and big thinkers focus on driving revenue.
Yeah, that's an interesting fact. Yeah, anyways, I think this has been an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's been great.
We always, when we sit down, these types of conversations, we have them all the time. I appreciate you coming out to Hamburg because
Thank you for having me.
You have valuable time that you otherwise would have spent with your family, so I appreciate it a lot. We're looking forward to, you know, discussing our next projects, you know, today. And for everyone watching, if you want to see more of Tareq, please visit his channel, Community Collective, if that's correct.
Community Collective, my company channel. As far as my personal channel, you find that on patrick.cadei on Instagram, and there is the YouTube link over there where you can also watch the long form.
Fantastic. Or you visit one of our masterminds where Tareq is a frequent visitor, frequent speaker. We're looking forward to iron out some deals where he can potentially come to our events also next year. Tareq, I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate being someone who can learn from you, some random kid 7-8 years ago who slept on your couch, and now, you know, we do business together.
That's quite good when you think about it.
Yeah, it's funny, yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, man.